what makes a great game? Think of some of your favorites. Is it a well-written and deep story? A rich atmosphere? Incredible music that you'll listen to in your own time? Or maybe it's all about the moment-to-moment gameplay. What if I told you there was a game that excelled in all of these areas and offered a 100+ hour experience, all for the low price of $15? That's right, gamers, you saw the title. We're talking about my favorite game, Hollow Knight. And before I continue, this review will have spoilers. This isn't meant to convince you to buy the game, but rather to allow me to explain why I love it so much. If you haven't played Hollow Knight, you'd better get on that. Let me remind you, it's $15. First, let's talk development and other boring stuff like that. Hollow Knight was made by the indie team Team Cherry, primarily composed of just 3 people. It was funded through Kickstarter, where it raised $57,000. Additionally, the game has 3 free DLC packs, with the 4th one being turned into an entirely new game, Hollow Knight Silksong, that is yet to be released. I'm glad that's over. Now we can actually talk about the game. I'm sure the art style is the first thing you noticed, so I'll get that out of the way now. This game looks absolutely incredible. The character designs are some of the best I've ever seen, the backgrounds are absurdly detailed, and the animations are as smooth as silk. Enemies pop out of the background, and you immediately know, I don't think I want to touch that thing. The game uses its colors to communicate. Orange means bad, blue means good, yellow-green means youch, but only for the first half, and red means be afraid. Be very, very afraid. The game also uses particle effects to say, hey moron, look over here. This can be dream-nailed, this can be dream-nailed, even this can be dream-nailed. And when you enter a place that doesn't look like the rest of the game, you immediately know, uh-oh. And then there's the music. I won't say too much about it, since you'll be able to hear it for yourself in the rest of the video, but I will say there's not a single song I don't like. Except for Cornifers. Now, I'm sure there are some people watching this video who are thinking, who cares about the art and music? The only thing that matters is the gameplay, and to those people I say, I care. And alright, let's talk about the gameplay, because guess what? It's incredible too. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania. If you don't know what that means, it's basically, guess what, idiot, you can't go there yet, you need the double jump. While this might seem like bad design at a glance, Hollow Knight does it really well, with a multitude of methods of fast travel, and extremely intuitive and easy to traverse areas. You also open shortcuts the more you play, and the movement is a blast, so even when you do have to backtrack, it's not that bad. Oh yeah, movement. It's incredible too. At the beginning of the game, you're a little slow, but you have absolute control over your character. There's no acceleration or deceleration. The knight moves the second you move the control stick, and it stops the second you let go. You have complete control, even in the air. The game also gives you a multitude of movement upgrades, things like a dash, a wall jump, and a double jump. All of these upgrades are precise, but they add an element of risk and on-the-fly decision-making. While dashing is faster than walking, it has a set distance, so improper spacing is a great way to die young, and the double jump is a little laggy, so proper timing is a must. Because the player has absolute control over their movement, every hit you take feels like your fault. Speaking of, let's talk about the combat. I've heard others complain about it being too simple, but I disagree. There are 3 basic charm loadouts you can use. I'll talk about charms later. A nail build, a spell build, and a heal build. These playstyles are drastically different, with the nail build being all about aggression, the spell build being about tactics and looking for openings, and the heal build being for little babies. Personally, my favorite is the nail build, which meant all of my battles were about getting up in my opponent's face and hitting them as many times as possible, while narrowly dodging their attacks. An advantage of this was that I had an excess of soul when the opportunity to heal presented. Speaking of, let's talk about the other big aspect of Hollow Knight's combat, the soul system. Every time you hit an enemy, you get soul. This can be used to either attack with an offensive spell or heal. However, healing takes time, so you have to find a break in the enemy's attack pattern. The soul system adds a layer of decision-making and risk-reward to the combat. With all of these options, the combat in Hollow Knight manages to be simple to understand, but incredibly difficult to master. Now, let's talk about the bosses. These bad boys range from great to god-awful. The best bosses are like a tennis match. the boss acts, and you react. Most bosses follow this format. Some, however, try to shake things up a little bit. For example, the boss acts, and you try to react, but the boss has already spawned a billion projectiles. Or the boss acts, and you try to react, but the other boss is already in your way. While most bosses in this game are a joy to fight, there are enough annoying ones that I thought I should point it out. A core aspect of any Metroidvania is exploration, and Hollow Knight manages to get this mostly right. The first time you enter a new area, you'll be completely lost. The first order of business is always to find the map maker, Cornifer, and buy that area's map. However, the map is not fully filled out by the time you get it. There are still large areas that are unmarked, that you have to fill in yourself by exploring. The map only updates when sitting on a bench, a save point in the game, further incentivizing the player to seek out these safe havens. Additionally, the player cannot see their location on the map unless they have a charm, Wayward Compass, equipped. This incentivizes the player to learn the layout of each area so they can free up a charm notch for other uses. My only problem with the exploration is with some hidden areas. While most breakable walls are pretty easy to find from either subtle cracks or suspicious positioning, some hidden areas are a little too obscure. The biggest offenders are these false walls that are hidden out of sight by foreground elements. Unless you want to walk into and slash at every wall you encounter like an idiot, you probably won't find a lot of these without some sort of help. But this is just a small blemish on an otherwise incredible system of exploration. I said I was going to talk about the charm system, so here we go. Charms add a new level of customization to the gameplay in Hollow Knight, mixing RPG and Metroidvania-like elements. There are a multitude of charms that can be found or bought throughout the game. They have effects ranging from increasing damage output, allowing you to dash more frequently, or spawning friends for when you get lonely. You have a set number of charm slots, with you finding or buying more as you explore the world, and each charm takes up a set number of these slots. This leads to a new level of decision making and keeps the game fresh, as different charm loadouts can drastically change how you play the game. Finally, before we move on from gameplay, I want to touch on Steel Soul mode in God Home. For those that don't know, Steel Soul mode is a playthrough where death is permanent, and God Home is a set of boss rushes. While these are fairly significant parts of the game, they're mostly for completionists and those who really want to challenge themselves with extremely difficult content. But I'm not really one of those people, so I'm just going to acknowledge the content here and say that I like these ideas in concept, but don't like them as much in practice. Now, I'm just going to throw a story and atmosphere into one section, because the two are so intertwined in this game that you really can't talk about one without bringing up the other. However, this game almost has two stories. The one you experience and are the protagonist of, and a story beneath the surface, the story of the Kingdom of Hollownest. And this is your final warning, there will be story spoilers ahead. The primary story is shockingly minimalist. At the beginning of the game, you have no direction. The first NPC, Elderbug, doesn't tell you of any imminent threat that you have to stop or anything like that. As far as he's concerned, you're just like the multitude of other bugs that came through this town, just to descend into the caverns below and never return. The only thing pushing the player downwards is their own sense of adventure. Throughout the game, you run into other bugs just trying to live their lives in the ruins of the Kingdom of Hollownest. The story only starts to pick up when you meet Hornet in the City of Tears, who sees a promise in you and tells you to venture into the Temple of the Black Egg. You have to defeat the Dreamers to break the seal in the temple and challenge the final boss to try and stop the infection. This uninvolved storytelling creates one of the loneliest atmospheres in any game I've ever played. Few know you're a hero, and few care about you. You're on your own as you explore the caverns, and you feel it. This feeling of loneliness blends perfectly with the oppressively dark atmosphere of the world and the daily lives of the other bugs. The ghost of a famous singer continues to sing for eternity, but there's nobody left to listen. A nailsmith, after creating a blade he can never top, asks you to kill him so you may at least feel the power of his greatest accomplishment in his final moments. Zote steals your girlfriend, like what the hell, man, that's not cool. And perhaps darkest of all, traveling deep beneath the kingdom, you begin to uncover the price of its power. Standing on ground made entirely of the corpses of your brothers and sisters, you begin to learn about the hidden story of Hollow Knight. A story of the struggle between two gods, the Pale King and the Radiance. A story of the Radiance trying to control the minds of all the citizens of Hollownest, and the Pale King desperately trying to retain his power by trapping the Radiance in a pure vessel. A story of the murder of thousands of the Pale King's children, and the attempt to create a vessel with no mind to think, no will to break, and no voice to cry suffering. You are not the Hollow Knight. The Hollow Knight was supposed to be pure, but the Hollow Knight has failed. He was impure, and the Radiance has taken control of him too. The only way to stop the infection is to destroy him and consume the Radiance yourself. Rated E10 and up for fantasy violence and mild blood. This hidden story leads to one of the most emotionally gripping climaxes of any piece of media I have ever consumed. After defeating the Dreamers, you enter the Temple of the Black Egg and break the chains on your failed sibling. You begin to fight to the death, the fate of Hollownest in your hands, and yours alone. But halfway through the fight, this happens. The last shreds of the Hollow Knight's conscience begin to fight with the Radiance for control over the body. The Hollow Knight begins to periodically stop attacking you, and instead attacks himself, trying to assist you in defeating him and consuming the Radiance yourself. After weakening him enough, you consume the Radiance, are chained up, and the Temple of the Black Egg shuts again. That's only the most basic ending. In another ending, the same series of events plays out, but Hornet rushes in to try and assist you, but ends up trapped in the Temple of the Black Egg, presumably for eternity. In the true ending, you enter the Hollow Knight's mind and attack the Radiance directly. You defeat her, but you end up destroying yourself in the process. The threat is gone, but so are you. Yup, E10 and up for fantasy violence and mild blood. More suitable for children than Melee. Incredible art and music. Fun gameplay that encourages player expression. A dense atmosphere and an emotionally gripping story. Zote the Mighty. All of this for $15. This game was not made for the purpose of making money. It was made for the purpose of making a good game, and it absolutely succeeded. This game is a work of art, and one I've sunk over 140 hours into. That's just over a dime an hour. So if you're watching this and haven't played Hollow Knight, A, that was a bad idea, and B, you should do that right now. You can thank me later. And while I don't normally give games numerical scores, I have to give Hollow Knight a 10 out of 10, or in other words, double S tier. Hey, thanks for making it to the end. I spent a really long time on this video, and I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Also, checking out my Twitch channel would be awesome. I have 16 followers, which means I'm getting close to being monetized, which would be a huge milestone for me. Finally, please write what you think about Hollow Knight in the comments, and we can bring the discussion down there. Thanks again for watching. Keep gaming, gamers.